guys, it's Michele, and we are recording, I'm assuming, right? So this is good stuff. We're excited about that. It seems so weird to be talking to a camera. It's, you know, here we're in Manteca with lots of food and lots of goodies. So we're excited about that. So this is Michele, Zaragoza, team leader, Central Valley Realty over in Lodi, Tracy, Manteca, Modesto, Stockton. I had to go around the whole map. So very exciting. You guys, what's Friday? Does anybody know what's coming up on Friday? Yep, the picnic. I hope you guys are all going to be there. We have already over 200 people signed up, so we're really excited about that. We changed the menu, tacos.
Oh yes.
So we have hamburgers and hot dogs. Oh yeah, we didn't change it from tacos. Yeah, that's really good. I do have some exciting news. The ALC got together last month, or a couple weeks ago, I should say. They are wanting a face-to-face meeting. So instead of the how we've been doing our team meetings is the second and fourth Monday of the month. Excuse me, first and third Monday of the month is what we've been doing. And thank you, Barb. And so the first Monday of the month is going to be on Zoom. The third Monday of the month is going to be in the market centers. Okay, and so like Modesto and Manteca are going to switch off. Stockton and Lodi are going to switch off. And then we'll have Tracy as well. If anybody has any questions, go in the comments and text me and what have you. And I just got a thumbs up from somebody. So I'm really excited about that. I figured you guys would be excited. We have to pivot, right? We're pivoting back into the offices slowly. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now with COVID, and I
You're muted, Michele.
think it's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing. Okay. Also, what's coming up is Tim Wheeler, the CPA is going to be on Zoom next Monday. Everybody's been asking for him for, I don't know, like a year now. And we finally were able to get him, but it is going to be on Zoom and not face to face. He is not taking any more clients because we've made him very wealthy. No, I'm joking. But it's to the point where he's not taking any more clients. It's pretty exciting. And it's pretty much all because of our teams and our agents. So we're really excited about that. Okay, so I do have an announcement. Does anybody want to know what the announcement is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I win a prize?
What was that?
Did I win a prize?
Can you win a prize? Not for this one, but I do have a question for you. And I am excited to announce we have a new assistant team leader for Central Valley Realty. Rob, why don't you come on up? Come on up to this weird thing with the camera. Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, a lot of you guys have already met him. He's been in and out of the different offices introducing himself. And he's here to support our team in growth and in education. And I'm really excited to have you.
Excited to be on board.
Thank you. Want to say anything about yourself or?
Been in real estate for a couple of years, originating loans, doing real estate transactions. So
mega agent, buyer's rights, yeah.
Not too bad start out the gate, and I come from a management background, undergrad in mechanical engineering, master's in business. So kind of a broad breadth of experience leading up to my real estate career, but
yeah,
excited to bring a new, different flavor to the office and work with everybody and meet everybody.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you so much. I'm excited. So this is happening as of today. So I'm excited about that. That'll help us all. I'm really excited about our guest speaker. We've been talking goodness for about 4 months back and forth. And that's been a challenge on trying to get you on the calendar, and we have to switch it a couple times. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. You've got a story that is amazing. I love the story about you being in the top 100. So we've got to learn from you. You are it, girl. So come on up and share with us your story, please.
Alisha Simpkins.
Yay! Okay, I was told I had to do something weird and fancy. I'm good. Okay, perfect. All right. So usually when I talk, I get to bring a lot of energy, and I don't know if you guys have gotten an opportunity to share all of your failures, but it's not as glamorous as normally I get to get up here and speak. So I have been, as Michele said, I've been in Gary's top, well, I think he just started the top 100 maybe 3 years ago. And I was invited out the gates from my production. I've been in business for about 16 years. I got in the business when I had 1 child and I now have 3. I was married the same year that I got my real estate license. So married 16 years, been in the business 16 years. And I used to go to family reunions and watch the people up on stage and just think, my goodness, like what a glamorous life they have. And then I started learning a little bit about them. And I thought to myself, I don't think I want to be anything like them, because not everybody who makes it up on stage, but for the most part, when you get to talk to them and find out how truly happy they are inside or how their relationships are, they're not very great. So like them, I put business before family and not realized it. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my journey, and I plan on talking about 25 minutes and then we can ask questions, and I am a total open book. So you notice that I lead from vulnerability, and I just like to I like to connect with people, and I feel like we could do that a lot through our failures instead of getting up here and saying, I sell this many homes a year. I'll tell you guys a little bit about that, but I really want to share with you guys what my journey was, because if I can help just one person save their relationship with their kids or their spouse, that's what I'm here for. Plus, there's no way that God put me through what he did if it wasn't so that I could be an example to people. So I love sharing my story, and I try not to cry. I've said it enough to where I usually don't have to refer to my notes a lot. However, when you talk about failure, it's really scary. And I'm not teaching you guys my listing presentation or how to get new listings. That is simple. And that's something that I could just show you different slides on. This, I am just super vulnerable with what's happened to me the last 10, 15 years. So a little bit about me. Like I said, I've been in the business for 16 years. I have, for probably 8 years, I've done a minimum of 75 units a year. So I have learned to really work my butt off. People get sad when I tell them that I got in the business the year the market crashed. I love it because I was never an agent who waited for my phone to ring. So I got to do the massive lead generation that taught me how to create the foundation of my business. So I have made tons of money in this business. I have more awards than I can count. I've been on stage at Family Reunion, Mega Camp. I've been interviewed one-on-one by Gary. I've told a few of you already, I became friends with Jay Papazan. Honestly, like the way that my life looked, it looked super glamorous. But if you pulled that curtain back, I was a hot mess. Like I put success over my family and didn't realize that I did that until it was almost too late. I became addicted to success through that. I became addicted to alcohol. I almost lost the relationship with my children. My children hated me. My son fought depression. He became addicted to pills in high school, and I almost got divorced. And some of those things, they actually happened twice. So I'd like to tell you guys that I learned really early on in my career, but it wasn't until 2020 that I had my real breakthrough year. 2020 was the first year that I made $1 million as a solo agent, but it was also my worst personal year. So I remember January of 2021 sitting in my office and praying and crying. But before I bring you guys to the moment that kind of changed my life, I wanted to bring you into my childhood, because like probably most of you, a lot of what we went through as children affects how we operate as adults. So I grew up living with my 2 little brothers. I raised them when I was about 5 years old. There were days we didn't eat, times with no power, and sometimes no water. We moved all the time. Like my mom and dad got divorced when I was 5 years old, and we lived with my mom, who took a liking to drugs, men, and gambling. Because of that, my brothers and I had to kind of raise ourselves. I went to about 15 different elementary schools. And what that meant to me was I had to basically be seen all over again. Like I had to get new friends. I had to learn new schools. I had to learn new teachers. So finding my way as a child, I remember what was really important to me, and it was just providing security for my family. I remember as a junior in high school, I was walking up the stairs and there was a 30-day notice on the door. That unfortunately was pretty common for us. So I remember grabbing the note and walking into my house and handing it to my mom. She always had a plan, so I never really worried about it. I just focused on school and raising myself. But 25 days into that month, I just remember that things were a little different. There was no urgency. I went into my mom's room and I sat on her bed, and I just remember saying, "So where are we going?" But this time she asked me the same question. She said, "I don't know, where are you going?" So I don't remember the next 5 days. I don't remember packing. I don't remember saying goodbye to my brothers. I just remember driving around to parking lots and looking for the ones that were most lit, that made me feel safe, just so I could sleep. And so there I was, 17, pregnant, living in my car. And I probably would have done that as long as I needed to. But I found out that my brothers, who were 12 and 13, they were sleeping on cold garage floors. Like whatever parent would go to bed first, the friends would sneak them into the garage and they just sleep on the floor. But at 12 and 13, they needed somebody, so I knew that I couldn't just survive like I had my whole life. I had to figure things out. I had to get custody of my brothers. I had to find a place to live. So I did all of that. And a month after we moved into our place, I had my son, Izzy. So when I had Izzy, I had him on a Thursday and I went back to school on Monday. And I tell that part of the story because clearly I always had a fear of failure. Like it wasn't something to me that I could just live my childhood. I knew that survival was always at the forefront of something that I had to figure out. And now not just for myself, but my son and my 2 little brothers. I remember being a little girl and daydreaming, where most of my friends were playing the MASH game and who they were going to marry, where they were going to live. And all I thought about was what type of mom I was going to be and how successful I could be. Because I knew that growing up the way I did, my only job was to make sure that my children didn't know what that fear was of survival. We didn't have, like I said before, power or water some days. And growing up like that, all I kept saying was, my family will never know what that's like. So I remember when I had Izzy at 17 years old, I knew that whatever my mom did, I had to do opposite. So I went to every single one of his practices. I volunteered at his class. I made it a point to be an incredible mom. I got into real estate when Izzy was 8. So for the next 5 years, I had a lot of fun with it. And then I found success. So I shared that part of my story, you guys, because to me, there were 2 different ways to approach life. It was figure out how to take care of my family. And in my sick mind, that meant success. Just be successful. And even though with Izzy, when I was a mom out of high school and was able to be that great mom, once I smelled and tasted success, I am mortified to tell you guys that feeling of being a good mom, it was overtaken by the feeling of being successful. I knew what success was, and I was really good at it, and it was easy for me. And I never expected that I would make that type of money. So I put my head down and I just ran as fast as I could to success. To make myself feel better, because I knew that I was probably not living life the right way, I decided the way that I would make up for it is I would take my family on vacations. So we vacationed all the time, because in my mind, it was, I have to provide a life that I didn't get. And we never went on vacations. We couldn't even afford new school clothes, presents for Christmas, nothing. So in my sick mind, it was, if I'm just successful, I can give them what I didn't have. They didn't care about that. I mean, this isn't in my notes here, but I just scheduled a trip for Thanksgiving. And I told my kids when they came out of their room the other week, I'm like, hey, guess what? We're going first class. And they went, so what's for dinner? Like, and the moral of that story is they didn't care about vacations. And in my sick mind, that was what I was providing them. That's why I was always on the phone. That's why I was always working. So I remember on one of our first vacations, we went to Maui, and I was walking on the beach with my two little girls. They were probably 5 and 6. And Olivia says, put away your phone. And I didn't even have my phone. For me, the significance of that moment was 9 times out of 10, and she told me to put my phone away, I was on it. Like I was always on my phone, whether it was when they were talking to me, when I was cooking dinner, like whenever it was, most of the time I was on my phone. And if I wasn't on my phone, mentally I was on my phone. I was returning a text. I was thinking about, what was going on with a client. And so that moment I thought to myself, I have a major problem. Like clearly I'm on my phone all the time and I don't know how to say no to my clients. And I was at a mastermind last year in Texas, and Jay was up in the front, and Jay said, we were talking with Gary's masterminds, when you guys get a chance to go, he doesn't talk about production. Like we don't talk about production at all. We talk about the way that we live our lives and the way, are we living it to our fullest? Are we happy? How are our relationships? And Jay said that he was teaching the couples goal retreat, and a husband and wife were on the floor and raised their hand, the microphone came, and the wife said, I have built such a massive, successful business that I don't know how to say no to my clients. Like they are now ruling my life and I don't know what to do. And the husband looked at the wife, and when Jay was telling the story, he had tears in his eyes. And Jay said, the husband goes, you say no to us every single day. And when Jay told that story, I was crying because that was my life. Like I said no to my family every single day to say yes to 10 clients, which is so messed up. Like if you think about it, so a few years later, I was dropping Olivia off at school, and it was a Tuesday. I remember that because it was my team meeting day. And I pulled up in the front and I said, okay, have a great day at school. Mom, I'll see you later. And she goes, can you walk me in today? And I went, no, I can't walk you in because it's my team meeting day and I can't be late to my team meeting. But tomorrow, if you find your shoes fast enough, we'll leave early and I can walk you in. For me, Olivia has about 1 or 2 more years left for me to walk her in. When I looked at her that morning, she was crushed. And I know it's not the same thing, but it brought me back to the moment where I was sitting on my mom's bed and she asked me where I was going. And I had promised myself, one thing I know is that my children will never know what it's like to feel unloved or unimportant or unseen. But that was exactly what I had done to Olivia. And I remember she got out of my car and looked crushed. And I pulled away and I thought to myself, I hate who I have become. Like everybody else was getting the best me, but my family was getting the leftover me. I remember driving to my office that morning, I swear to you guys, and tears were just rolling down my face going, how did I become who I am today? What happened? Like I promised myself that I would be this amazing mom and somebody who I have control over being, somebody who makes their kids feel good, but I couldn't even do that, and when I would think about it, I would think my clients would get fun Alisha, they'd get energized Alisha, they would get nice Alisha. I would honestly have time to do 100 things at work. But when I got home, I wouldn't have energy to do one thing with my family. Like my husband would say, let's go on a walk. And I would go, I'm too exhausted. Or my kids would say, can you play a game with me? Or can you help me with work? And I would go, Mom is too tired. I had a really long day today, and the truth is that everybody on the outside, they loved me. But the 4 people who mattered most, they didn't. I remember that my son, who he would be the best baseball player, football player, soccer player. Like he was an incredible sports kid. but he would always get the award for having the best smile. And Izzy was just a happy kid. He would go into a room and he would light up the room. But in high school, I was so obsessed with success that my son became addicted to pills, and I didn't even know. Like, he became depressed in high school, and I didn't even know. Like, I was so busy chasing success that I couldn't see the signs of my own child, somebody who would light up a room every time he would go, that he was broken inside, that he would sleep. I remember, you guys, days that I would go in and shake him, and I thought he was dead. And I'm like, what on earth is wrong with Izzy? But I didn't think about the fact that he might be taking something, or something might be wrong with him. All I kept being focused on was the next deal, or putting out this fire, or closing these next 5 escrows. Secretly, I found my validation with success. Like, I knew that I was always the #1 agent, and I would get these awards and recognitions. And instead of finding the validation through my family, which I should have been most proud of, I found it with other agents saying, oh my gosh, you're great, or you're so wonderful, or making sure that I was #1 all the time. It was sad, like, who I had become. So I did what a lot of people do, and I started drinking to cope with my day. I drank every single day. I would tell myself that I would just drink on the weekends, which probably was my first sign that I had a problem. I remember I was drinking with some of my K-Dub friends, and I went home. A few things happened, and I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning to my husband looking really, really sad. And I remember asking him what happened. And he said to me, do you remember what you did to the kids last night? And I went, and I kind of remembered a little bit. And he said, you cursed at them, you flipped out at them, they went to bed crying, and you were just drunk, happy, Alisha. And when he said that to me, I kind of remember everything that was happening. And I would surround myself with people who would convince me that I didn't have a drinking problem, because drinking was the only way that I was able to cope with the person who I had become. It was easier for me to watch my family fall apart while I was numb than it was to do something about it. I would make promises to myself all the time that I would quit, and I never would. I remember being in Mexico one day. Well, before I tell you this, I remember my counselor told me that you have a drinking problem when the drinking's causing problems. And my drinking was causing major problems with me and my family. So when we were in Mexico, when I had a drink in my hand, I turned to Izzy and I said, starting tomorrow, Mama is never drinking again. And I remember he said, sure, Mama. August 14th, 2017 was the last time I had ever picked up alcohol. And thank you. As proud as I am of that moment, it wasn't when my life changed. So I want to fast forward you guys to 2020, where I made $1 million as a solo agent. If you would have told me that I had the ability of making $1 million, I wouldn't have believed you. And if you would have told me that it was possible to make $1 million and be miserable, I really wouldn't have believed you. But it happened to me. My kids hated me, my husband hated me, and I hated myself. January of 2021 was probably one of the most significant moments in my life. It was the day that I learned that I could cry while my eyes were closed. I remember being in my office all by myself and praying to God and saying, this was my exact prayer. God, if I sell 5 homes this year, but my marriage is the strongest it's ever been, that will be my most successful year ever. And I was so, if I would have said that prayer 2 years ago, it wouldn't have been true. Like, it wouldn't have been true because I didn't hit rock bottom. But where I was, that statement to me, that was my only goal. My only goal was to save my marriage. So what I didn't realize was making $1 million wasn't going to give me the happiness that I needed. In fact, making $1 million probably prevented me from doing what I needed to do and focus on my family, because success tasted so good to me that I realized I put success at the expense of my family. And I have beat my husband up by me being in this business for probably the last 10 years. Not every day, but he was the sole provider for our children because I was working. So he was there to pick them up. He was there to do the dishes. He was there to cook dinner. And I made him feel like that was his job. I lost respect for my husband. I would constantly remind him that I would be able to retire really soon and that I made the money. This is really hard for me to talk about because I have a saying that says I speak from my scars, not my wounds. And this is still a little bit of a wound to me, but it's something that I've been working on. And so it's a little bit easier for me to talk about it. However, I beat my husband up so much that eventually he hated himself. And that hate turned to me. And it should have, because one thing that I had experienced over the next 6 months was I had to learn to love myself again, but I had to also make my husband fall back in love with me. I had to figure out who I had lost in myself and who I had to become in order to realize that success didn't matter business-wise if I didn't have that extremely safe home to come back to. I'm sure I'm missing an awful lot in here, so I'll do my best to kind of find myself and get back where I was. Every day I told myself that the pain my husband was going through and the pain that I was going through was to be expected, because what I had done over the last 10 years wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. This was something that I had to prove to him, and I have to prove to myself that I could be the person that he had fallen in love with. So every day was based around me being a better version of myself than the day before. Every prayer, every conversation, the center of my conversation was, what do I need to do today to be the person that I'm proud of? I'm incredibly proud to share with you guys that my marriage is the strongest it has ever been. And I sold 93 homes last year working part-time. And I know that there's an awful lot to my journey that I probably haven't shared with you guys today, but I wanted to go over a few of the things that I feel were a direct impact of what I changed in order to sell that many homes and working part-time. I had to re-identify my core values. Like, I realized through this whole thing that one of my core values was being successful to my family. So I had to figure out what my new core values were, or what I had lost. I had to, so besides just re-identifying my core values, I think the hardest thing that I had to do was change who I was at my core. It wasn't about that success that I had chased for 15 years. It wasn't about any of that made me a top producer. It was about the person that I'm proud to be. And I'm not proud to be somebody that sells 100 homes by themselves with a broken family. I'm proud to be an incredible wife and an incredible mom, and I have a great business. But I don't care about the business if my first two things aren't crystal clear for me. I became very clear with my non-negotiables. My non-negotiables, and I'll share a few of them with you guys. For example, when I get home, if I'm still on the phone, I sit in the driveway. I do not go into my house on my phone. I'm very, very particular with being present where my feet are. If I'm at work, I'm focused on work. When I'm at home, I'm focused at home. I lived by a 12-week work year. Do you guys know what a 12-week work year is?
Yes.
Okay, it's what Gary changed. We used to use 411s, and a lot of people still use the 411s, but it's a glorified 411, which creates a full year's worth of work in 12 weeks. So your activities are doubled and tripled because you're supposed to accomplish what you would in a year in 12 weeks. So I lived by my 12-week work year, and I had the right people on the bus. So going back to identifying core values, I had to set priorities in my life and business. And one of the most important things I did is share them with my team. I know it's scary to talk about your failures and to talk about what you're going through, especially when your marriage is on the rocks and your kids don't like you. But for me, if I wasn't willing to get vulnerable and honest with my team, I know that they wouldn't have been able to support me at the level that they did. My number one core value is being present, and most importantly, as a wife and a mom. So I know that if I can be present at home, then that's gonna create one more step to success with my family. So it goes back to be present where your feet are. Gary says, when you know your values, your decisions are simple. That one is written on my wall because for me, when you know your values, your decisions are simple. My values are being present at home. That means that if a seller wants to meet at 6 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock at night, that's not something that is in my, that's something that's in my non-negotiables as being home with my family. So for me, that's something that's a non-negotiable for me. And it's easy for me to say that person wasn't meant for me to do business with this year, because when I know my values, my decisions are simple. I have a really quick Uber story for you guys. We had a guest speaker at KW in Chico, and out of his whole class, and I made tons of notes, the one story that he told me I think will stick with me for the rest of my life. And he said there were 2 KW agents in Austin that were going to a conference, and it was an awful Uber ride. Like the Uber was awful, the ride itself was awful, and they were looking at themselves in the back going, oh my gosh, are we almost out of here? They get to their destination, and one of the ladies hands the Uber guy a $50 tip. They shut the door, and the friend goes, what on earth was that about? And the lady says, I am a generous person, and I refuse to let the action of others dictate my core values. One of my core values is I am a generous person. And when he said that, I went, oh my goodness, the light bulb went off, because what Gary says, which is when you know your values, your decisions are simple. She knew her values and her decision was simple. So that for me goes back to, again, if I have clients who demand my time when it's family time, my decisions are simple because I know my values, and my family will never be put second like they were with my whole career.
Say that one more time though, like there's people asking.
Which part?
The quote. What she
Oh,
stated.
when you know your values, your decisions. Oh, she said, I refuse to let the actions of others dictate my core values. I had conditioned myself my whole career to say yes. It was Gary Keller saying, say yes to the hard things, you know, tell yourself, say yes when you're uncomfortable. So I had conditioned myself to think that way. But now I had to learn to say no, to say yes to my family, which was a really big eye-opener for me. The fact that I had to learn to say no to people because I had just conditioned myself to say yes. I had to choose a time to be home by. So this one's always fun for me because in January, when I hit my rock bottom with my marriage, I told my team that I needed to be home by 4. So January and February, I was home by 4. Being home by 4 felt so good that in February, I told them I needed to be home by 3. And then that turned to 2. And I stopped after 2 because I knew that first of all, I knew that my husband would really hate me if I was home all day. And I was always like, what are you doing? You want to hang out? And he's literally looking at me like, I want you to go away and never come back. So this year, I did change it this year. This year I've committed to picking up my kids from school every single day, which means that I leave work at 2:30 and I take Fridays off, and I don't work weekends. So I work Monday through Thursday from 8 to 2:30. I know that adds other questions on how on earth do you do 93 deals only working till 2 or 2:30 Monday through Thursday? Leverage. The truth is leverage. So I was explaining before I got up here that there's several things that I do, but I leverage myself to the max. So I am on ALC, like some of you, and what that means is that we have an open door policy and we help as many people as they want, as needed. For me, I tell people, you come in anytime, I'll go over my listing presentation with you. You can have all of my material. All I expect from you is that if I have a client who wants to see a property after 2 or on weekends, that you show it to me for free. And they go, I am all on board, and raise their hand. So I leverage myself. I use other agents after 2 o'clock. Now I have a buyer's agent. My admin got licensed, and my life has never been more leveraged because sellers don't really need you after a certain time. So now my life is even leveraged to the max. Where was I at? Oh, stuck to my 12-week work year. So my coach, and I have an executive coach, which charges $1,500 a month. So think about how painful it is to when she calls and goes, how's your marriage going? And the whole years before, you're sitting there production based and, you know, wanting to make sure that you hit all of these production goals. But I wanted to make sure that everybody who was important to me in my business life and personal life knew what my big priority was, and that was to save my marriage. So my coach coached around my personal goals, and I happen to do that also, because as much as I love failure on my team, I tell them that's the best way to learn when it actually happens to you. One thing I never wanted them to learn through failure is a failed marriage, right? Or failed relationship with their kids. So for me, I get them involved in all of the ugly parts of my life, not because I want them to really know, but because I want them to know, because it truly happened to me, you know. And I think a strong marriage can make any tough escrow okay. You know, that was one thing I learned is it sucked when I called my husband, you guys, and told him that I made $1 million, and I was on Linda McKissick's podcast, and so she needed to pull my numbers last January, and when they pulled them, I thought there was a mistake because it was 1,0 something, and I'm like, it says that I only made $1,000 for the year, but I just didn't know that there was another zero that I wasn't used to seeing. And so when I called my husband and said, oh my gosh, I made $1 million last year, he goes, oh, didn't you know that? And I'm like, oh, no, wait, I didn't know that. So he didn't know that, but all that means is when you go to celebrate something that you don't have great personal relationships, it doesn't matter. Like nothing's worth celebrating when you have a failed marriage, you know, or your kids hate you. Let me see. Okay, one of my last things to tell you guys, and then I'm all about questions, is I had the right people on the bus. I have had a team for probably 10 years, and I've never had the team that I have. So my team stayed in their lane, and the only other lane that they crossed into was mine, because they picked up my slack and my mess so that I could be with my family. They never ever questioned, never asked me anything past 2:30. If I was there, they went, get home. So they were on my team more than I could have asked for. I followed the darn Recruit Select, which was an intense, awful process, but it was worth it. Let me see. Oh, I have one more quote to give you guys, because I think counterbalancing is so funny. And so the idea of counterbalancing is that you never go so far that you can't find your way back, or stay so long that there is nothing waiting for you when you return. So
do that one more time.
the idea of counterbalancing is that you never go so far that you can't find your way back, or stay so long that there is nothing waiting for you when you return. And also, I want you guys to know, I didn't go from selling 40 homes to 93 overnight. Like, I do a lot of business. So for me, as much as 93 deals working part-time is probably impressive, I average between like 70 and 85 deals already. So I think for me, the big point of that whole story is I was still able to cut down the time that I spent investing in work and still make the same amount of money, if not more, by focusing on the things that were important to me.
Intentional and purposeful.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys have been wonderful.
That's a beautiful story.
I mean,
There's really awful parts to it, but I don't, again, I'm an open book, but I didn't want to get too emotional with you guys today, because I don't think you need all the nitty gritty details to just know, you know, what happened on the surface, because I think the surface is just as good, kind of.
You need to write a book. So much for sure.
I heard that before. I'm going to.
Alicia, I have a question.
Yes.
I hope you don't mind me asking.
Never.
Is your son doing better now?
He lives in LA and he's 23. So, you know, they call it Los Angeles. He's struggling, but I've never been more happy with his struggle, because I made a mistake raising him and I hid the struggle. And he grew up very naive and didn't have an appreciation for hard work and a lot of the things that I hid from him. So he's getting it now. I don't pay his rent. I don't pay his car payment. He's on our phone plan and insurance, but he barely calls for help and he struggles all the time. But I think this is God's yep, this is God's way of giving him the struggle he needs to create character.
Well, he does have an amazing example of persevering and getting through challenges.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Your points hit home. Hey, congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you.
I've hit years myself, so I get the struggle and I've been through it. So congratulations on that.
How many years?
8.
Nice,
Yeah.
congratulations.
And then, one of the things that struck home for me was saying no to your kids, like when you get home and you're tired and, they have that crushing look. And I've encountered that a few times as well. So finding that balance has definitely been key and one of the big reasons why I got into real estate in the first place, because I was traveling so much prior.
Yeah.
So again, thank you again for sharing some of those struggles, because a lot of that resonated with me. If you could, I think for some of the people probably listening as well, you said you have a team. What are their roles? How many people do you have on your team? Probably interesting to hear.
Yeah. So last year I had Jessica, who was new. She was about a year in, and she was a wedding planner. If you've never hired a wedding planner, do it. Crisis management, they're very good under pressure. Their job is to make people happy and dealing with bridezilla. So naturally real estate is the next thing. So, so 2 of the girls on so Jessica was all year, for the last year and a half, she was my EA. So she was my rock star. She did everything. And then I had Lindsay, who was my listing manager role. So when I would go on a listing appointment, she would be the one to do all my notes. She'd send the thank you card. She'd send the plan to the seller. She'd coordinate everything. She gets all the feedback. And then she's also my TC. So now we've switched roles a little bit because Jessica became licensed at family reunions. I never thought that I wanted to grow a team until I realized that I don't think real estate is what I'm supposed to be doing. I think it's more speaking and just being able to possibly touch others through my nonprofit. But real estate has given me the foundation. So I knew that I needed to grow my team. So we moved Jessica into the buyer's agent role, and she had to replace herself. So we just hired a girl, Paige, and Lindsay moved. So last year, my team looked like 2 girls, and it was a TC/listing manager and EA. This year, I now have Jessica, who's my buyer's agent. Paige moved into the admin role, and Lindsay moved and is now only my TC. So I have a TC, admin, and buyer's agent.
And always growing your bench.
Yes, always looking for talent.
And Alisha, what did you say your TC's name was?
Lindsay.
Is she only your TC?
I just gave her to another agent, but it's mine and another agent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So she's focusing on, so that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your nonprofit?
My nonprofit is called Single Moms to Homeowners. So based on my story where I was a teen mom and homeless in my car, I've created a nonprofit that's for single parents, but single parents didn't give the ring that Single Moms to Homeowners gives. So we give up to 50% of their down payment and cover all closing costs for them to get into a home. We believe that if we can just create more opportunities for single parents in home ownership, that they'll get a chance to dream and start living their lives. And we can show these children that somebody is both, believes in their mom or dad. And I believe that when children see the generosity, that they just end up paying it forward as adults. So
I have experience with that as my mother raised me and my younger brother as a single mom. And it is quite the challenge in some days. I'm like, just myself, like, oh my gosh, my mom did so much and I'm over here complaining about whatever stupid thing for that day.
I called Jay Papazan when I first created it and got on his schedule to chat with him about what I could do to make it better. And he said over 60% of our KW agents are single moms.
Yeah.
So he believes in my program more than I do. And he goes, you're going to have chapters and all the, we could have a chapter in all these states, and the agents can tap into what we've already created, do their own fundraising and get people into homes in their area, but I haven't been able to dream that big yet.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Thank you. You'll be my girl here.
That's great. I love that.
Anything else?
Any questions?
I think I've already received 15 texts thanking me.
Oh,
You were so authentic. so real.
Mhm.
You know, here's my whole thing is, you can Google how to do a better listing presentation, but when I go to Gary's Mastermind and we just talk about how to live a better life, that's the company I want to belong to. So when I get to talk to people like Michele and the TL I spoke to last week in Pittsburgh, who had me speak to their office, I go, this is the value you want to bring to your agents, because if you could save one relationship, that's somebody who's going to be forever grateful to our company. And I think these are more of the people who we need to be bringing in, people who are authentic, you know, and who are willing to say, I have screwed up majorly and let me tell you what I did. So thank you guys for listening to my failures. I don't know if it was fun, but
It was fun and insightful.
good.
I do have one question. Where do most of your leads come from? Have you built it by referral? Do you have, where are the sources?
I get a lot of repeat business. I get a lot of referrals by agents. Have you guys heard of a company called Homelight?
Yes.
Okay, is it big here?
Mhm.
So I guess what they contacted me, what they do is they go after top agents, because I don't pay them anything unless I close a deal. But they know that if they refer it to an agent who's a top agent, that the likelihood that they could close the lead is good. So randomly, we get a lot of leads from that company. We get a lot of leads from a company called Referral Exchange. But we like paying, I was telling you guys that I pay sometimes to have people do my open houses, because it's I just started. I mean, I just paid someone $200 to do 2 of my open houses. But other than that, we don't pay for leads. So I am a big believer in Gary's, get out there, do social media.
Yep.
A new agent just came and met with me last week. And I said, if I were you and I was starting over again, I would only do social media. Like I would never call another person if I didn't have to, unless I was returning a call. But lead generation isn't done by the phone anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we have social media that's at our fingertips. And if we just learn the different tricks and tips there, then we can reach so many more people. So
You said you paid $100 per open house to a licensed agent, I'm assuming. So, and you kept the leads, or?
she put them in my database. And I gave her the idea, and I said, well, maybe if I pay you like $20 more, you will go door knock 25 houses. And then, so there's all kinds of, I mean, for me, I want my time. I want my time for my buyer's agent too. I'm not one who believes that let her put her work in. Why? My job is to lead her and to make her feel like she works with the best person and that she never wants to leave. I don't want her working on weekends unless she's showing a property to a person who's driven by, is super qualified, and there's a 50% chance that she's going to be writing that offer. So I don't really want my buyer's agent to do open houses. I'd rather spend time with her new husband.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just have something to say. I might get emotional just because your message is so beautiful. And I'm a big believer in being really transparent. And I think that God made a beautiful message out of your mess and a beautiful testament out of your text.
Oh, thank you. So he never puts me through anything that it's not to share with others. So
Sorry. Sorry, little guy.
okay. Anything else? I think I'll be here for a little bit. So
Any questions in Zoom
That was
land?
amazing.
I had to gather myself, gosh.
I did find myself coming to tears a couple of times, but that's okay.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Oh.
I'll hang out here until.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to hang out and have some fruit and some pastries. All right, you guys, it's Monday. Focus, focus, focus on that one thing that you need to do today. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Yes.
So you're Chico agent?
Yeah.
I have a client. I
Did you guys say-
listing agent for.
Great.
Zaragoza
Oh my God, I cried.